everyone. Today, welcome back to WealthWise Live, where my goal is to help you master your money and secure your future. Today, we're talking about leadership and wealth and what it really takes, not just financially, but internally and professionally, and in the way that you actually build your life. A lot of people are chasing success, but don't always understand what it requires to sustain it or even define it correctly. Today, I'm here with Mr. Jay Suggs. I myself am Malachi Battle. Mr. Jay Suggs is a leadership stabilizer, strategic advisor with 20 plus years in executive leadership. So, Jay, welcome to WealthWise Live. With that being said, I'd like to
thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, for sure. And with that being said, I'd like to give you the floor to introduce yourself.
Well, as Malachi said with that great introduction, my name is Jay Suggs. I'm a leadership advisor, CEO and founder of Success Consulting. I help leaders think clearly when leadership gets complicated. That's pretty much what my job is. I meet leaders and executives and founders exactly where they're at and help them understand that leadership in its entirety is a mirror. It doesn't judge and it reveals. And the more it reveals, the better you become as a leader of yourself and also the people that are under your charge.
That's absolutely awesome. It looks like I might have a slight lag, but we're going to make this work.
Yeah, just a little bit. Okay. But we'll make it work. We'll make it work.
Okay, awesome. So I wanted to start off, well, first, thank you for that. I want to start off asking, where are you from? Where did you go to school? And how did, where you're from and that schooling background kind of shape you into who you are today?
Oh, wow. I didn't inherit wealth. I like to think that I inherited survival. I was born and raised in the city of Newark, New Jersey. Shout out to Brick City, of course. My mother struggled with her demons, and my sister and I was found in the system, child services systems, for about 4 months. And my grandmother literally found us and took us in. So I like to say that Sally Suggs saved my life. She was a registered nurse for a very large metropolitan hospital. My path growing up, even though I was growing up in the inner city, my grandmother felt I needed certain foundations. So I was in Catholic school from middle school all the way to high school. So just imagine, walking in my environment with a shirt and tie on, right? So right then and there, I think that was my first introduction to adversity as we talk about presence and appearance and what you stand for. My grandmother always used to tell me, when you walk out of this house, you represent me, you represent your family, and you represent what you stand for. So when I was in Catholic school, presence was instilled in me at an early age. I went to a state college in New Jersey, Ramapo College. My trajectory in regards to corporate America was not ideal. It wasn't. As soon as I got out of the college situation, I went right into corporate America. I had a lot of odd jobs, and it helped me understand that generational wealth it's transferred into generational resilience. So my path in corporate America, I was a sales representative, contributor, and in 2016 I became a leader of people in various roles. And then something I like to say in my career miraculously happened. I became a global director of diversity, equity, inclusion in 2020. My first day on the job, George Floyd was murdered. First day. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm not in sales anymore. But that role literally taught me how to meet people where they're at, operate at a higher level of emotional intelligence, and realizing in order to foster any type of strategic outcome, you have to ensure that the culture is intact by transparency, communication, and openness. Um, a year ago, I started my advisory firm. I wanted to take my superpowers and use them for all those skills that I used in my corporate career to help leaders that are at inflection points. And that's what the work is about today. Corporate wasn't the dream, but I always like to say it was the vehicle, right? I've leveraged promotions. I didn't validate them as my worth. As well as every role that you have, and I'll tell the audience, every role that you have funds the next version of you. earlier, you and I had an early conversation about how individuals enter roles and they have an employee mindset. They come in, they have roles and responsibilities, they cover their expenses, and that's it. But what are you doing to pour into yourself, right? You got to treat yourself like a rare commodity because nobody else will. Nobody on this planet is designed like you. No one has your je ne sais quoi, your style, your flow, your swag. I think the kids say now Riz. No one has that. But how do you make sure that ROI is robust and it keeps building? My first portfolio wasn't stocks, it was skills, right? So when we think about generational wealth, we always think about money or leaving something behind. But if you do not work on the inside, no amount of money is going to stick or work for you. So you need to understand who you are, and you need to understand reinvesting in yourself is the highest ROI asset that you can ever accomplish. You bet on rooms before returns. Most people spend a lot of time trying to look successful before they become it. So you got to do what I call that invisible work, that heavy work, right? To get to where you're at. I wasn't chasing money. I was compounding my capabilities. You know, there were roles where I was well underpaid, but I knew it would get me to the next step. If your mindset isn't stable, money won't stick. If you can't pass down what you haven't built internally, the transference of your legacy will be there will be a gap. And I think it's important to understand that you got to think about breaking the cycle and extending the cycle, right? I wasn't just earning, I was interrupting patterns, right? I was in rooms that on paper they say I wasn't supposed to be in. My grandmother used to say, panic don't pay the bills, decisions do, right? So different decisions equal different bloodline trajectory. So the decisions I make now are the roadmaps that I built for my son. The decisions that he makes is for his kids. So decisions is also a part of this generational transference of legacy when we think about wealth, because wealth is more than money. It's access, it's awareness, it's standards. Conversations change your ceiling. Standards become non-negotiables. So what my pillars are and what my principles are, right, may be different than my nieces and my nephews and my little cousins and my son, right? But we build that foundation so they can follow that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. You hit on a lot of things there. So let's unpack each of those. We
Yeah.
we started off with, you brought up your grandmother, and I
Mhm.
wanted to ask, how did that experience impact you, both personally and professionally? You said you got the resilience mindset. Can you
Mhm.
elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh man, I mean, Sally Suggs saved my life.
Hmm.
She was a RN nurse for a trauma ward, which is the hardest ward, second to the emergency room to work for. Sometimes she did double shifts. Sometimes she worked three shifts. Sometimes I didn't even see her. So seeing how she showed up each and every day was my first lesson in leadership, right? It doesn't matter if you feel like it, if you feel great,
Yeah.
if you don't feel on point, you constantly got to show up. So when I think about generational wealth, she transferred a certain mindset for me of what a work ethic means.
Yeah.
Like she was a nurse dealing with gunshot wounds and car accidents and things like that, but she never changed her positioning when she was my guardian, right? She never, a bad day at work never transferred into the home. I couldn't even tell you if she had a bad day or not because when she came home, she was just Nana. And I think that's very important when we think about leading ourselves or leading people. It's
Yeah.
not to say that you're not going to have a bad day, but it is a mindset of understanding, right? As a
Hmm.
leader, you have to exhibit the behavior that you want your people to model. And that's what I learned from my grandmother. I learned that resiliency, perseverance also means that you have to connect it to your presence, right? You know that old adage that says, fake it till you make it, right? I believe that's a funny term, right? Fake it till you make it. No, I believe your language catches up to your activity and
Hmm.
then that presents into your conviction and your outcomes. And
Right.
that's what my grandmother did. I mean, when we came, my sister and I came into her life, she was done. Her kids were all out the house. They were adults having their own families. She was living her best life. I'm pretty sure she wasn't expecting to take my sister and I on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in struggle and in adversity, you gotta be agile, right?
Right.
You never could see what's coming up. Um, and she taught me also that it's not about asking for a seat at the table. It's about pulling out your own table, put your old tablecloth on, put a couple of chairs over there and say, hey, this table over here is happening. You want to come sit with me? I
Right.
learned that from her. She was a teamster. That's like the union for the nurses where she
Mm-hmm.
was. And I noticed I learned a lot about even though you're in the system doesn't mean that you cannot leverage your individuality and your uniqueness.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I learned from my grandmother. And more about her in my book, Relentless Conviction Leading from Your Core Values. That'll be out fall of November. But it's literally part story, part principle, part reflective questions as a leader. But everything I am, the way I'm shaped is because of Sally Suggs.
Yeah, and one of the things that you hit on is your ability to keep going regardless of what's happening. That is true. That's a very true
That's
thing.
generational wealth.
You
You
know.
think about it.
Yeah.
You can be you cannot have a lot of money right now, current state, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say, because it happens, right? Let's just say you don't have an abundance amount of money, right? And you're thinking about as a parent, what is the legacy that you leave, right? You leave resiliency. That is a cycle that is undeniable, right? Listen, my father didn't have a lot of money, but when I saw them address certain things or encounter struggles, they did not give up. That's generational wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not. It's not stocks and it's not just, investments and diversification in Bitcoin. It's not even just real estate. It's to do all those things, right? To attain real estate, to manage your portfolios, to know the best stocks to invest in, right? Before all that, there's an emotion and emotion behind that. Are you going to be perseverant? Are you not going to give up? Are you going to be resourceful? Because what's happening now is when people, when they dwell, they get stuck. And when they get stuck, they're unable to maneuver. So if you think about generational wealth as a action, right? Think about that. All those things we just mentioned that you want to attain, well, they need an engine behind it. Resiliency, perseverance, determination, um, agility, because things may not always go your way. That's how you transfer into the legacy.
Right. Yeah. I think that's very true. I know in my own personal experience, of coming out of post grad with my graduate degree, and
Hmm.
going to work and learning how to do that consistently. Sometimes I
Hmm.
come home every day. I don't want to iron my clothes.
I hear
I
that.
might not want to cook. Um,
Right. I'm
and as
53 and I don't like being an adult, Malachi.
Yeah, and as I have, been working full time for almost 2 years now, I notice
Hmm.
myself being able to power through it even if I don't want to do it, more so than
So
I
let
was
me ask,
able to at a point in
yeah,
time. And go
yeah.
ahead. Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
What are you carrying right now that nobody sees when you talk about work and your
What am I
responsibilities?
carrying that nobody sees? In a rotational program, you move a lot, right? Of
Yeah,
course, there's a rotation, and it
right.
can seem glamorous, and I think it is an amazing opportunity. But when you're moving, you're changing everything around you.
Yeah.
Your
Even your living
environment,
condition, right? You're
your living
moving out,
conditions,
right?
yeah, your environment, the food that's around you, simple things like that.
Yeah,
Where proximity to different things, and then at work, you're dealing with different cultures, you're dealing with different people. You're new, right? So people have to learn to trust you. There's a lot of different things that come with that. And I think that's why it's a part of the program, right? It's a leadership program. And I think
hmm.
experiencing those things and being able to successfully overcome them definitely helps you as a leader for sure.
Well, outside looking in, I'm going to tell you the number one thing that it's going to help you with is lived experiences, but you're not going to be in a bubble because you're in literally different facets of a different location. different cuisine, different pace, right? All
Right.
that does is make you better. So remember earlier when I talked about compounding your capabilities,
Mm-hmm.
that's how you increase your ROI.
Yeah.
So even at times where it may feel disruptive, right? It may feel like, you know what, I kind of like it how I am out here in this particular state, right? I like this vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Change is an uncomfortable process, but on the other side of that is always growth, right? My
Yes.
grandmother used to say, if it scares me, it may be right for me, right? So anything I've ever done in my career that terrified me, I did it,
Mm.
right? And on the other side of that, it was always a benefit. There was never a loss, there was always a gain. So when you talk about that rotation program that you're in, those are lived experiences that are increasing your portfolio. Look at
Right.
it that way, which means it makes your ROI even stronger. You're the asset.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so perfect transition into your career, because you mentioned going from sales to global director of DEI, and so
Oh yeah.
looking at your background, you've had a lot of corporate experiences, a lot of different opportunities,
Yeah.
and I wonder how did those opportunities come about? I'm realizing, especially being in my corporate world, that at a
Hmm.
certain point, it doesn't even matter if you went to school for it. If people recognize you for being a problem solver, they'll put you if you business, they might put you in an engineering position if they think
Oh
that you
yeah.
can do it, or vice versa. So
Yeah, when I was your age, number one, I never thought I would be a sales representative. Number
mhm.
two, I never thought I would lead inclusion and belonging globally. That was not in the plan. So for the audience, it's very important that what I what I want you to understand about your roadmap, it's yours. You have to be open and do not restrict yourself saying, I just want to be this one thing. Let your purpose, your talent, and your efforts and your influence guide you, not what you want on paper. So when I got into sales,
Hmm.
you know, I love people. I love the art of the deal. I love chasing, right? I like taking nothing and making it something. So I knew I was ignited by that. But more importantly, leadership, I never saw in the cards, right? You say anything about
Really?
being a manager, I'll be like, hey, I'm not your guy, right? I'm not your guy.
Hmm.
But in 2016, a leader had recognized that I was the representative that used to shadow the newer the sellers, right? If you were a new rep joining the company, I would be the one you would ride along with, and I would give you some guidance. For me, I never looked at that as leadership. I just felt like I was paying it forward. I was just
Right.
sharing my
Trying to
perspective,
help.
sharing my lens, but I never said, "Oh, can I lead more than one person?" No, I was just like, listen, here are the bumps and bruises that I went through, and this is what you need to do to try to avoid it, right? And then in 2016, a leader came to me and offered me an opportunity to lead people. And I remember saying to him, "Are you out of your mind? I'm a A-type sales rep. I'm selfish. I like my money. I just want to care about myself."
Yeah.
And the way he said it to me is like he did somewhat of like a survey, and he asked around like, we got this new role, who would be good for it? And here's one thing the audience needs to remember: you never know how someone is viewing what just comes easy to you. So everyone with consensus was saying Jay is always helping people. And then I started to think, well, maybe that's what leadership is. It's a serving role, right? So in 2016, I took the role. I fell on my face the first 90 days because I started to follow what I thought I should do, right? Leadership back in my day, you saw a person in a corner office with a door closed looking at spreadsheets, right? That's what I thought I was supposed to do. And then I started to realize one thing about leadership is that you can leverage who you are within it.
Hmm.
The job description is just a benchmark, but you redefine the role. So I remember after those 6 months, you know what I did? I sat inside the sales bullpen with the reps. I moved my desk from the corner office, which was very nice in Manhattan, right? But I needed to understand the pulse of the team, but I also needed them to know that I was approachable, right? And I was accessible and that I was here for them. And I had about five different leadership roles from the first one
Mm-hmm.
because that was my effort. I was known as a people leader. And I did put the people first. For me, it was about meeting people where they're at because they're different. Everyone's cut from a different cloth. Everyone has different upbringings, different programmings, different perceptions of life and business. And then in 2020, something interesting happened. So I resigned from the company I was with. I put in my resignation and I was going to go to another organization because I felt at the time, I felt like it was like recycling cars when it came to the hierarchy, and I didn't see anyone that looked like me. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, you know what? Let me just go to another organization. Maybe I can, build from there. And I got an interesting call from the vice president and said, "Hey, uh, we heard you leaving. Give me 48 hours." I was like, "Well, I gave you 2 weeks." so so 48 hours later, I get a call from the head of HR and say, "Hey, listen, when we do these cultural audits and surveys, your region really expands about culture and how you're engaged with all the employees." And I was like, okay. And they were like, well, listen, we would love for you to run inclusion and belonging for our organization. And I remember saying to this gentleman, I said, hey, I'm not Barack.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a sales guy, man. Like, what do you mean? He was like, no, this is perfect. Helping leaders understand the more diversified their teams are, the better chances they have at hitting their targets. And then I thought about my grandmother. I'm like, damn, what would she think? Because she marched on Washington with Dr. King, right? I said, when would I ever have an opportunity in my corporate career to really impact change? So I became the global director of diversity, equity, inclusion. And I did that for 2 years. And I would say that role literally changed my lens on all things leadership, for sure.
Yeah, I bet it did. Um, you had touched on something that I actually was thinking about lately. I wanted to ask you, could you touch on trying to perform versus naturally being who you are? I've been paying attention and I noticed that when I am just being who I am, I go the best. The moment that I just try to
Yeah,
perform,
right.
it's like yikes, you know. You kind of get in your head, you kind of do
Yeah.
what you think you should be doing or what other people think you should be doing, but when you kind of just, hey, just be me, just be you, you see the best success. What how long did it take for you to pick that up in a professional sense?
Well, here's the thing about let me put this into context. Behind the title, behind the roles and responsibility, there lies the person, right? And we tie a lot of our validation to our fancy email signatures and our
Mm-hmm.
titles.
Yeah.
But in full transparency, who you are, what you do, what you're paid for are all three different things, right? We have jobs to cover our expenses, to take care of the people that rely on us, right? Our title is just a baseline. It doesn't define who we are. Now, when you think about performing, some of us may have responsibilities where there's metrics, KPIs. You have to sell something, you got to close something. But here's the thing: you have to be grounded in all that, and you have to understand who you are with your core values. Now, there was a point where I came to an impasse in my career where, on paper, I was killing it, Malachi. I checked every metric in my corporate career. And the higher I went, the more disconnected I felt from myself. So from the outside, Jay is winning, right? But in here, I wasn't because I wasn't being honest with myself. Leadership is a mirror. It does not judge, it reveals. Validation from metrics and deals and targets and quotas and titles will never fill up your soul. What fills up your soul is your intention. What matters to you? Your job is just a vehicle, right? It's not the engine. The engine is your heart, your mind, your soul, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for example, I tell a lot of people that are very successful in executive roles, great, I get it. On paper, you're doing it. What else are you doing? And I always get a look. And you're like, well, I'm investing my money in these stock index. No, no, no. What else are you doing? What
Mm,
other things make your heart sing? Because you know the days where I feel like I'm struggling and I'm suffering, you know what I do, Malachi? I help someone. When you help someone, your problems don't seem that big anymore, right? So for me, I serve on a board for a nonprofit. That's my
awesome.
way of taking my skills and my efforts and paying it forward, right? So the difference between performing and being yourself, you can do both, but you can't seek validation from the performance.
Mm,
So you can't look at the performance and say, if I perform great or if I'm under the bar, that means I'm less than. No,
right.
you matter no matter what. You matter no matter what. If you hit your target, you don't hit your target, right? I believe we all have the ability to bring humanity into sterile systems. And when I say sterile systems, I'm talking about programs, right? Most programs are designed, you got a target, you hit it. If you don't meet it, it tells you either you're going to be let go, you're going to get written up, you're going to be given a performance improvement plan. All that is true. But guess what? It still doesn't define you. When I had to have hard conversations with people, when organizations had massive layoffs and you have to have these courageous conversations letting people go, you know the first thing I tell them? This has nothing to do with performance. This has nothing to do with you as a person. In fact, this doesn't even define you. What I'm telling you, I know it sucks, I know it stings, I know it's uncomfortable, but I need you to understand this decision that an organization made does not define you. And it's the same thing about performing and being your authentic self. You don't seek validation through performance. You seek your own validation of what you consider the values and principles that lead you forward.
Mm, yeah. And so, with that, and as we kind of transition into defining wealth, just one more last question in terms of leadership. You know,
Hmm.
there's a certain point where you're going to get certain things, whether you have a child, whether you have a home or car,
Hmm.
and there's a lot riding on that.
Yeah,
And you have to continue earning to keep what you've built. How did you
right.
handle that weight? And what did pressure, the pressure of an executive, what did that teach you about leadership?
Man, that's a great question, Malachi. Well, let's call pressure what it is.
Mm.
It's real, right? I'm not going to sit here and tell you, well, I just thought of better days. I'm not going to do that. Pressure doesn't break leaders. It reveals what they've been avoiding,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you've been avoiding not having those courageous conversations, you're going to feel it. If you've been avoiding not being honest with your team, you're going to feel it. Most people don't break because of the pressure. They break because of what pressure exposes. People don't break because of their pressure. They break because of what it exposes. So, for example, if you're not having those courageous conversations with your team or your employees and you're not being honest with them about what's really happening, pressure. If you're not telling your team you don't know all the answers, you really don't know what to say, but you'll try to figure it out, pressure, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't give your team the climate of business, right? One thing with leaders I notice, it's always go get it, go get it, go get it. Well, hold on. Even though we're going getting it, maybe I need to explain to you why we need to go get it. And these are where the numbers are, right?
Mm.
I'm just speaking in sales in general, right? So
Mm-hmm.
let's just put this in context. You got to constantly be honest and transparent. And if you're not being transparent, that's pressure. A lot of leaders aren't overwhelmed by work, they're overwhelmed by carrying it alone, right? I tell leaders all the time, tell your team the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent. Not project, but give them an understanding. What they feeling is also what you're feeling. I know it sucks, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not transparent enough with our employees. We think we have to hold this certain mode, this certain model. No, as a leader, you got to be human. Pressure has showed me that what I couldn't handle. That's what pressure has showed me. So anytime I was encountered with pressure, I would just ask myself, what do I need and what do I feel? Right? And most times I would get the answer, what do I need is I need to be more transparent. What do I feel is the pressure feels like too much, but pressure is also clarity. If you just sit in it for a minute, if you revel in it, I didn't say dwell, but revel in it. Why do I feel pressure? What is this trying to tell me? It's a signal.
Hmm. That's a that's a great
And yeah,
perspective to have.
hey, listen, you don't reduce pressure by doing less. You reduce it by carrying it differently.
Hmm.
You can't avoid it,
No, you
but it's
can't.
how you carry it, right? It's how you, most leaders aren't, they're not tired from the work. They're tired from thinking through it alone,
Hmm.
right? That's where the exhaustion comes from. And don't make decisions on exhausted emotions. You
Yeah.
can't. We all
Interesting.
get those emails, right? And go, just want to respond. I used to always tell my team, don't document your frustrations. You got an email, sit with it for a minute.
Yeah.
Don't initiate, don't engage. If it got you feeling a little different, sit with it.
Right. Give yourself some time to think about it. You know what you
Yeah,
said
for
is
sure.
true. I was a National Society of Black Engineers president at Bama,
Oh
University of
wow.
Alabama, for a couple of years, and
Yeah.
what you just explained is true. It the work isn't necessarily what's hard. It's just the communication about the hard things, and um, addressing things, being fully honest about everything that's going on. Because everybody's not gonna like things. Regardless of what
Yeah.
you say, some people are gonna be on your side. Some people are like, "Oh, I don't like this guy." And there's all kinds of stuff that comes with, you know, being a leader. Um,
Well, think about it like this. When you look
yeah,
at a building, right? When a building collapses, from the outside, it visually looks from the outside. But what most experts would tell you is that the shift happens inside the building.
yeah,
Same thing with leadership, right? You're playing the part. You're looking as if you got it all together. But if you do not ask yourself some hard questions, that shift starts to happen inside. That's why I
yeah,
say leadership is a mirror. It doesn't judge, it reveals, right? You got to lead within here before you can lead anyone.
right,
If you can't lead yourself, if you can't understand your triggers or the things that activate you or your fears or your doubts, right? You tend to project that onto the people that are under your charge. Um, I think it's very important in this climate. We're in a massive technological era with AI, automation, innovation, right?
mm-hmm.
Everything is moving at this fast pace, and everyone is like, they feel like the ground beneath their feet is shaking. But here's the deal: no matter, AI is an amplifier, it's a tool. You still need someone to give direction.
Yes, that's gotta be you.
I think I read the first computer was in 1958, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody told them it wasn't going to work. This automated computer thing, right? Prior to that, people said the typewriter wasn't going to work. And
Yeah,
then fast forward, everybody said dial up wasn't going to work, right? But who initiated it and pushed these tools forward? People, the leaders of those efforts, the leaders of those initiatives. So when we think about leadership and we tie it back to generational wealth, um, it's always about compounding the capability, always, right?
mm-hmm.
How do I add my lens and perspective to make sure this is conveyed in a way that people can receive it and digest it?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Gotta learn how to communicate better and be fully honest. I think you're right. When a leader is kind of broken, it is exposing what they are
Yeah.
avoiding. And that's how I ended up overcoming a lot of my challenges as a president during my time. Is really looking at it and thinking about asking those questions like, man, why is this not going kind of the way I want it? And when I finally figured it out, I was actually able to, work one on one with people and get us to where we needed to be. Um,
Yeah.
and if you're right, if you can't control what's going on in here, you're gonna listen to all those outside influences and well, you should do this, you
Oh,
should do
yeah.
that, and then you end up making the wrong decisions. So I think that's
People
that's a
tend to
great answer.
focus, when you think about leadership, right? People tend to focus on the outwardly things. Well,
Mm-hmm.
it starts inwardly first before you can even present it outwardly, right?
Yeah.
And here, let me also clarify something. Transparency isn't telling people everything. It's telling
Right.
the truth without losing your center,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It still requires a finesse, a understanding, reading the room, but you do it without losing your center. A lot of leaders say they value transparency, but what they really mean is they like controlled communication
Mm-hmm.
because I said so, right? That's not transparency. Transparency is more like conveying something that's difficult for a team to navigate, admitting that not agreeing, but admitting that you could see how it is, because we lack empathy lately, right? You could be empathetic and still not lose your center. You could say, listen, I could see how this situation is difficult for you to perform your job. That's empathy, right? That's not you saying that you're going to solve it. It's not you saying that you're going to guarantee things are going to change, because there's a chance you might. Can't guarantee things are going to change depending on whatever system you're in. But what you can do is acknowledge and be empathetic to that individual that is going through that. And leadership is so many things, but lacks a lot of empathy at times because of that controlled communication.
Right.
And listen, transparency requires something that most people avoid. It's all about what's going on inside. Nobody wants to deal with that inside stuff. That inside job is hard, man. That mirror, no joke. Right? It's no joke to tell yourself, you know what, maybe I am dropping the ball on this. Maybe I'm not communicating this well. Maybe my ego is in the forefront of my decisions and
It
not
may
what's
be.
best for this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, sir. You gotta.
Transparency equals vulnerability, but it does not equal weakness. And people tend to think being transparent and vulnerable means you're weak. No. I, I don't believe in trying to be perfect. Just be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Just be consistent. And communicating and being transparent is being consistent. And whatever you communicate, and most times as a leader, it's not even going to be good news, but you're consistent.
Right. Right. Yeah, these are all awesome, perspectives, all awesome answers. And, that's what this episode is about, leadership and wealth, right?
I appreciate it, Malachi. Great conversation, man.
Yes,
Great
sir.
conversation.
I appreciate it. And so transitioning to wealth, because I know you were saying earlier, you know, um, it's not about the money, you know,
No,
at a very
not not
small
not
point.
when you think of that term. No.
No, and you know, you were an executive. You mentioned how you should be pouring back into yourself outside of work. You shouldn't just be going and collecting a check, but you should be going to work, building your personal skills, and also investing
Absolutely.
in something in yourself or others outside of work. And so now that you're an entrepreneur with your own firm,
Yeah.
Success Consulting, I like to play on words, by the way.
Oh yes, man. I've been success since I was 16, doodling in class, something I wasn't supposed to be doing, but I'm glad I came up with
Yes, sir. You know, how do you define wealth today?
I mean, wealth isn't what you make, it's what you build into yourself that money can't take away.
Mm.
That's it for me. Let me ask you a question. If you lost everything today, who would you have to become to rebuild it?
The same man.
Exactly. And that's legacy, and that's transferable, right?
Hmm. That's a great
That's
question.
real wealth. Skill is real wealth. Now, stocks, bonds, money, bonus checks, commission checks, all these things, they're byproducts. And you can make great decisions,
Hmm.
right? For yourself and your future. But what are you doing to put that ROI back into yourself? You know, I used to chuckle a little bit when I was in corporate America, when employees was like, I need more training. I need more training. Okay. Well, if the organization or the system you're in is not giving you the training that you believe that you need to make you better,
Mm-hmm.
What are you? You going to wait for them?
No.
Or you going to figure out and invest in yourself? And by the way, there's so many training modules for free out here in the world that you can literally create your own, I like to call it microcosm of a university and train yourself, right? And find the training. You got to continuously keep learning, and it shouldn't matter if a organization or a program or a system is restricted of letting you do that within that system, then
Mm-hmm.
find another way to do it, right? Wealth equals capacity, thinking, access, standards. Listen, money's the result. Wealth is the capability. Money is the result. Wealth is the capability. So before you get all the money and attain all the things that you want, you got to be capable. Let me tell you a personal story. A lot of people don't know this. My grandmother was a registered nurse. When she passed away, she left me a little inheritance. Well over 100, well over six figures. I did the right thing in the beginning. I put it in like a stock index. I did what I was supposed to do. I followed a financial advisor. He told me what to do. I did it. But I did not do one important thing. I didn't grieve. I didn't go through the grieving process. I've just lost the anchor of my life. My mother, my father, she was everything to me. And first thing I did is I went and did all the cookie cutter, what all the brochures tell you to do. You take all this money and you invest it, right? And because I didn't grieve properly, I made bad decisions, right? I started taking the money, buying cars. I blew the money in less than a year. It was like a Monday hit. The stock market went crazy. I remember calling my advisor and I was like, hey, what's going on with my money? He's like, oh, it's volatile. Don't worry, it'll bounce back. And I took all this money, Malachi, and I put it in a regular checking account. And what do you think happened with that money in that checking account? Each and every time, kept withdrawing, because I didn't take care of this. So it doesn't matter how much is in your bank account. It doesn't matter how much money you accumulate.
Mm-hmm.
If you do not have the capability of understanding who you are and identifying the things you need to work on, money doesn't change the trajectory. Now, what I will tell you, I know some people may go, well, he blew all that money. But let me tell you what the lesson is. I learned how to bounce back. I learned from that lived experience, and I learned how to understand that grieving is a journey. To me, that adds on to the generational wealth to the next people that's ahead, that's coming after me. Don't do this because I did that. When we lose someone in the family, sit with yourself. Don't run away from that. And do not make any major money decisions when you're emotionally exhausted. We need to talk about that more.
Mm.
Because the money's going to do what the money's going to do, right? But it's really based on the decisions that you make. So I hope the audience understands that, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
have all the money in the world, but if you don't take care of this and
Yeah.
focus on the things that you need to focus on and make sure you're good and dealing with your traumas and your activations and the things and your programming, it don't matter. You could lose it.
Mm.
Now, fortunately for me, I made it all back, uh,
Yes,
and
sir.
and I and I like to think that's because of the resiliency that my grandmother left me. She
Right.
didn't raise a man that accepted mediocrity as the norm. So for
Right.
me, I'm so wealthy when it comes to that and her
Awesome.
teachings.
Awesome. Well, you got a lot of questions in our chat. So before I go to the audience for Q&A, I want to ask you
Sure.
three questions. And I call this the quick fire segment. I haven't done
Yeah.
it in a couple of episodes, but we're bringing it back because I think it is a really cool thing to do and a way to get your perspective. But pretty
Yeah.
much, I'm going to ask you three questions and we'll go one by one.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
the goal is to answer within a minute to a minute and a half. Okay.
Okay.
It used to be 60 seconds or less, but nobody was
Yeah.
giving you
I
60
live in that
seconds.
60-second space,
Okay,
but let's
okay,
go.
okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Let's go. Let's go.
So, what's your best advice for young professionals?
Stop future tripping.
Hmm.
Focus on the present.
Stop
Stop worrying
future
about
tripping.
a year and 3 years from now. Stop future tripping. You know what determines your future? What you do right now. Right now. Stop wondering if you're picking the right major. Stop wondering, oh, I want to be a successful lawyer, a successful doctor, or a successful engineer. What is all that worrying going to do right now that's going to change the future? All it's going to do is prolong it. Focus on the things that are in front of you. Get better at those things that you do, and that will dictate your outcome. So stop future tripping. Master the current. Be in the present. The future will take care of itself.
Okay, thank you. That's good. That's good. My dad's told me that a lot.
Yeah, stop future tripping.
Yeah,
Your generation, y'all love the future trip, man. Y'all love the time travel.
yeah.
Don't rush.
You just want to be successful, and you work. I don't as much now, but in college I used to pretty bad. Um,
Listen, when you're having those days, Malik, I want you to close your eyes and think about everything you've accomplished thus far. You're always
right.
doing better than you think you are.
Yeah.
You're always doing better than you think you are.
Awesome. Okay, so quick fire question number two.
Yep.
What's one thing you wish you started doing sooner?
Believing in myself, being comfortable in my skin, understand that nobody on this planet is designed like me. There's only one Jay Suggs. Yeah,
Awesome. It's a
yeah.
good one. Doesn't matter if other people believe you if you don't believe in yourself. So
Oh,
you
absolutely.
gotta believe in
Believe,
yourself.
for sure. And believing in yourself don't mean if the circumstances around you are great. You just got to believe and have hope that you're capable of seeing it through.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, what's one thing that's most important to stay consistent with over time?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say uh, checking in on yourself. I remember I told you every day I say, what do I need and how do I feel? Sometimes we get up and we start our day and we just start doing all these tasks and routines without realizing where we're at here, right? So always check in on yourself, always, whether that's journaling, whether that's just asking yourself a series of questions. I suggest to the audience, think of three questions you can ask yourself every day that's real easy. No matter if you're in the shower, drinking your coffee, driving to work, whatever. For me, it's what do I feel and what do I need, right? Sometimes when I wake up and I feel very overwhelmed of things I need to take care of, I'll say, what do I feel? I'll say, I feel overwhelmed. Okay, Jay, so what do you need? I need to take all this to-do list that I need to do and I need to break it down into chunks of things that are manageable. So check in on yourself consistently. I don't care how good you look on paper. I don't care if you just got that new promotion, you just got that big bonus. You always got to check in on yourself. You check in on yourself daily, then you understand when certain things in your life change. It keeps you grounded and centered in who you truly are. You ever notice when people say, "Oh, I accumulated all these things and I feel lost," because you don't check in on yourself. When all these things change and all these big things happen in your life, or these barriers or hurdles, if you're not checking in on yourself, then you're not understanding how you're navigating through it. So check in on yourself every day. You got to stay consistent with that.
I think that's very true. Got to make sure you can't do anything if you're not okay. So I think that's very
Yeah.
important. And a lot
I
of
love that. You
times,
can't do everything if you're not okay. That's perfect.
yeah,
You said it, Malachi.
a lot of people, including myself, I didn't recognize that. I remember I used to all of my graduate school year. I went to sleep at like midnight, got up at 6. You
Yeah.
know, and it's you can only do that for so long. You know, so yeah. All right. So moving on to our Q&A, you got about 6 questions. I think we
Okay.
can. I think we can get them before we finish. I know by the time we get toward the end, we'll do your WealthWise tips, and we'll close out. So, but I'll go ahead and get started with these questions. So the
Okay.
first question is: if someone wants to change their financial situation in the next 90 days, what should conviction look like in action?
Okay. This is a twofold question for me. What does it actually mean to change your financial situation? Does it mean you want to add more income? Does it mean you want to take your existing income and diversify it for yourself? Or doesn't mean that you're in dire straits and you need to do something else and you need to change that. First, you need to identify what it is you want to do because for everyone it's different. The conviction behind it is real simple. Somebody asked me a long time ago in my career, and I'm going to say this, and hopefully your audience will receive it. They said, "Jay, how much you want to make?" I remember I was like 30 years, 34. They said, "How much you want to make?" And I was like, "More. More is abundance, right? Don't restrict yourself and put a number to it." So when we think about financial wealth and you think about the number that you want, don't put any number. Leave that number blank. Just say you want more of what's best for you, more abundance, more resources, more connections, building your network, more influence. Your number is more. That's it. Because when you put a number to something, when you tie it to something, believe it or not, you handcuff yourself. And guess what? You become a prisoner of that limitation and that shortcoming. Because if you don't hit that number, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to be hard on yourself. So, no, create these buckets of more. First, find the assets. How do I take my assets and make it liquid, right? Whether it's $40, $30, right? The second thing is abundance. Okay, you want to make a lot of money. You want to diversify, but what are you doing for someone else that's in a worse shape than you? Because I believe you got to put it back into the universe, right? You may feel you're broke, but I can bet mostly everything I have that there's somebody in worse shape than you. So what are you going to do with your time to help them? Or help that organization or help that cause, right? The third thing, you got to understand what you want now is going to change in the next 30 days or the next 6 months. So be open. You could plan something on paper today, but it might totally change. Your situation might change 6 months from now. Just be open. And the fourth thing, don't betray yourself. If you say you're going to do it, do it. And if a change comes to it, don't lie to yourself. I had to make an adjustment. I had to make a left turn. I had to make a right turn, right? But don't betray yourself. Hold tight to what you want to do. But in context, if it's more money, right? The conviction should be what does that look like and what can I and how do I do that? Hopefully that makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it does. And so moving on to question number two, the question is, what belief about money or leadership do you have to unlearn to grow?
If I lost everything today, I wouldn't have to start over. I'll start from my experience. I'm doing that now. I no longer got the big bonus checks and the big stock options. I'm an entrepreneur. But guess what? I got experience. That's my equalizer.
Awesome.
Think about it. Yeah. If you lost everything today and you wouldn't have to start over. You start from your experience.
Awesome. Okay. Um, question number three. What's one financial mistake people keep making because they're chasing motivation instead of conviction?
Uh, Money's gonna make you feel better about yourself. Having money in the bank gonna make you feel better about yourself. Happiness is an inside job. You got to find pockets of joy that has nothing to do with money. For me, I love to listen to a good R&B album, smoke a cigar, drink a old fashioned. I like to look at the ocean. None of that costs really money, right? So happiness is an inside job. I don't care how much is in your account. It's not going to make you feel better. It may make you feel safe, but what is really safe though? If you're not propelling and moving and thriving. So money's not going to make you happy. It's a vehicle, but it's not going to make you happy.
Hmm. Interesting. Um, and then going to our fourth question, starts with powerful takeaway. Oh, it's not a question, but it's a comment and then there's a question. So, but
Oh,
it was powerful takeaway. Wealth isn't about what you make. It's about how you build up inside that can't be taken away. That's a quote from what you said earlier.
mm.
And then the question is, how has your view of wealth evolved since you left the comfort of your corporate world for entrepreneurial pursuits?
Oh, wow. Some great questions, man. Wealth showed up for me the moment I stopped needing money to feel valuable. Literally. It showed up for me the moment I stopped needing money to feel valuable. When you're in a corporate system, you have an infrastructure that gives you the perceived uh, notion of a safety net, right? But the
Mm-hmm.
truth is, a company can decide at any given time that your role is no longer needed, right? That can happen to anyone. It can happen to the best performers, the best leaders, right? As I'm in this entrepreneurial journey, I know I'm more than a bonus check. I'm more than that fancy title on my email signature. I feel that. I walk that each and every day. So if somebody told me today, "Are you wealthy?" the answer would be hell yeah, for sure.
Okay, interesting. I imagine that's a big jump. Um, but the last question is, what has cost you the most on your journey to leadership and wealth?
Cost me the most. Hmm. I don't know. That's a great question, and I want to be, I want to be, I want to be very, very honorable in that question. I would say everything I have today cost me who I used to be. Leadership is lonely. It's very lonely. Um, I on my journey, my career journey, it cost me a lot of comfort. There were many days and nights of anxiety and rumination, right? Um, the price of becoming is letting go of who you were. So I don't know if cost is the word, but I would say leadership is lonely. But um, I'm learning to love myself, the new me.
I think that's awesome.
Great question. Great question, by the way.
Yeah, these are all some great questions. And with that being said, we're close to the end of the episode. I think this was a powerful conversation. Usually at the end, our guests give 5 tips that they have, the WealthWise tips, as I call them. Um,
Mhm.
and I would say for me, before we go into that, there's one thing to take away is it's not that just wealth isn't what you build; it's who you become in the process. You should
Right.
be able to redo all of those things if you were to lose
Mhm.
everything. I think that's a great point. And I thank everybody for tuning in. Don't just hear this and just keep moving. Think about it, put some thought into it, and see how you can apply it to your own life. But with that being said, Mr. Suggs, if you'd like to give your tips, feel free.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Build yourself before you build your wealth. If you don't build the person, the money won't stay. It won't stick. Reinvest every level up. Every time you make more, don't just upgrade your life because that's what we do, right? We get the new whip, right? We want to travel, right? You got to upgrade yourself. So your skills, making sure you're in the right rooms and your thinking. Every level I've reached, I tax myself to grow again. So you just throw the money back into you. Get in rooms that stretch you, how you think, what you see is possible, what you tolerate. If you're in a room that makes you feel uncomfortable, you're in the right room, believe it or not. If you're in a room and everybody is like-minded, just like you, what are you gaining? All it is mirrors. Would you really want to be in a room full of mirrors of yourself? Or you want to be in mirrors where you're uncomfortable going, wow, just the presence of that person and their experience and what they attain makes me feel uncomfortable. Or you could change your mindset and go, you know what? I need to figure out how did that person get to that status, right? So go in rooms that definitely stretch you. Stop thinking like, survival. Like you can't build wealth if every decision is about fear, right? Survival equals short term, wealth is long term. You can't build generational wealth with a temporary mindset, right? You got to bet on yourself. And guess what? Sometimes your family members might be the naysayers. I don't know. This is risky because people love security. Block out the noise. Do what you think is best for you. Learn how to hold what you earn. Don't blow it, right? Discipline, emotional control, decision making. If you can't hold it mentally, you won't hold it financially. You get an extra bonus in your check. I get it. Take a third, treat yourself the rest put away. Put away because you didn't know you were getting it anyway. It's extra. Think
Right.
about it like that. Well, and listen, wealth isn't about how much you make. It's about who you become and can you sustain it. Those are my tips, bro.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Suggs. I really appreciate it. I thank you for coming on and sharing your perspective and being open to be a part of my podcast in the first place. As for the audience, without further ado, this is the end, the Leadership and Wealth, What Does It Take episode. And as always, master your money and secure your future. WealthWise Live
Thank you for
out.
having me, Malachi.
Yes, sir.